Well, good morning. A lot has happened, right? In the last 24 hours, you got a new pope, right, from the United States. There's a deal with Britain regarding tariffs. It's not a deal. I'll talk about that in another video. It's kind of like a made up deal, concepts of a plan. But what I want to focus on today is what we're dealing with now with the tariffs. We're kind of sort of feeling the pinch. We're seeing the results. Some ships are coming in half empty. Some ships were turned around and went back. Everyone's trying to figure out how to adapt. We've had companies like Ford. Ford's not the only one that is not putting out a guidance, only because they don't know. They don't know what's going on. Everything's on again, off again. Ford estimates at this rate they'll lose 1.5 billion. That doesn't prove to you that tariffs doesn't work. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, sure, manufacturing jobs, because you can do that from one day to the next, right? No, doesn't work that way. So that's not even practical. Sounds nice, but it's not the reality of the situation. Uh, to me, it's like a client saying, "I want 2,000 a month in alimony. That's what I need." And it's like, "How much does your spouse earn?" 3,000 a month. Yeah, that's not going to happen. It's just not the reality of the situation. And so my concern is June, which is around the corner. By the end of June, if nothing has changed, realistically, by the beginning of June, you'll really feel it. You'll really start to see maybe less products out there. Um, but June, I think, is a magical date. And if it's the end of June and nothing has changed, then you're going to see things that are drastic, things that we have not seen, maybe since COVID, maybe worse. Um, People didn't really believe in COVID. We know that, right? I remember I used to see in my neighborhood um, what I would call the COVID parties. Everybody come on over every day because they weren't working every day. People were coming over and have these huge parties. And I would say those parties are going to end soon when the first person gets COVID. And sure enough, that's what happened. From one day to the next, the parties would end. So because of COVID, this is different. Maybe there was some sort of panic, but this is panic that we could have avoided. And so I think the reaction is going to be different. Maybe with COVID, if you want to argue there was fear, this one there's going to be anger and confusion. It's the same end result, empty shelves, toilet paper, whatever is missing, but how people are going to react are different. And that's why I'm convinced. I mean, they say the lesser of two evils. To me, this is like a band aid. It's going to hurt. I'm not denying that. It's going to hurt. The only question is, you want me to rip it off fast or do you want to go slowly? And I honestly, if nothing changes and everything stays the same and the due process issues and playing this game with Obrego Garcia's life, where they now they're claiming some sort of immunity. I forgot what it was, that they cannot release the information to the court. We're talking about a man's life here, and I even posted yesterday on I think it was Facebook. I had said, even if he's back tomorrow and he goes back to work and he's with his wife and his child, the long-term psychological effects are going nowhere, and neither for his wife. These are not people who were trained in this, right? So this is how you play with people's lives, and this is why even people that maybe signed on for Trump or against Trump. And I think you'll see that definitely in June. Because again, if things don't change and we start seeing empty shelves, why we saw it during COVID versus why we're seeing it today is going to be two different things. And that's why, unfortunately, I have no other way of saying this, and it sounds horrible, but in my opinion, and we see this every day in life, right? This is not nothing new. In my opinion, regardless of what happens with Trump, it doesn't end well. So if he gets impeached, which would be amazing, that would be historic if the Republicans actually got on board for that. But I think there's always a line to cross. And once that line is crossed and constituents change their mind, then, the Republicans, the senators, the members of the House have to react accordingly. So that becomes a popular opinion. And guess what? He's gone. But even if that happened, it won't end well, right? How are the other supporters going to react? Are we going to see something worse than January 6th? How is President Trump going to? Is he going to leave? That's always been an issue. Bill Maher said this was a slow moving coup. But let's say he doesn't leave. Well, that's not going to end well either, right? That's not going to end well for the economy. He's getting richer every day with his new meme coin scam, but we're not. And so that's why I think it's a band-aid. So we're just going to rip this off and deal with it, or are we going to pull this off slowly? Both hurt. One pain is slow, one pain is quick. Everybody has their own method on removing a band-aid, but that's the situation we're facing in. And what I'm concerned is about the month of June. If June is what seems to be what's going to happen, whether it's my opinion or economists or anything else, then that is when it's going to hit the fan. And the only question is, what is the reaction to that? Now, I know as of this morning, President Trump said he's considering reducing the tariffs by 80%. Okay, it's still what, a 70 something percent tariff, so it's not like he's being so generous. But what he says and what he does are two different things. And so I can only continue to say, be prepared. I'll give you one quick scenario what being prepared means. I'm having an appraisal done on my property next week. Do I feel like spending $400? No. But being prepared for me meant there may not be a FEMA in existence come next year, or this hurricane season, which is, around the corner as well in June, right? I think June 1st is the official date. What if, because I went through this before, and you can see the prior blog posts that I have where debating with the insurance company and all that ultimately led the house being and going into foreclosure. But what if I face that situation again? Insurance company is like, your house is worth $25,000. We're not paying a penny over. How am I going to prove otherwise? And so I'm going to get an appraisal, hold on to it. I don't expect anything from FEMA. I mean, FEMA maybe temporary housing. I have a camper. I don't have to worry about that. But if it means my house gets damaged, then at least I have an appraisal that could say, hey, look, this is how much the property is worth. Look at everything. I've got the garage. This is how much. So I can at least be in a better position to argue with the insurance company. But that's part of me being prepared. Now, it has nothing to do with the tariffs and everything else, but I have kept saying consistently, my preparation financially is going to be different than yours. And you have to look at your situation and say, how can I adapt to this? What if there is a shortage? What do I need? What I don't need? Is now the time to travel? Is now the time to buy a new car? You have to look at all the angles. And one suggestion I gave is just write everything down on a piece of paper, then come back to it tomorrow, and then come back to it the next day after that, and continue trying to figure out whether this, what is your particular situation. So with that in mind, and by the way, the effects are never ending, right? Truckers will have less to to deliver, et cetera. It's just a snowball effect. But that's why you need to be prepared. And we're talking only a few weeks away now. We're talking literally 6 weeks before we hit the end of June. So be prepared and ask yourself what you got to do to be ready for anything that comes down the road. It should be like that all the time, right? We should always approach things like that, but now more than ever. All right. Any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. Post them in the comment section below. Take care, everybody.